This hour on WMNH is proudly sponsored by CGI Business Solutions, located at 171 Londonderry Turnpike in Hooksett. Serving all your employee benefits planning, design and administration, investment and wealth management, and customized business insurance solutions. They are available at 866-841-4600 or on the web at cgibusinesssolutions.com.
You are listening to WMNHLP, Manchester's radio, broadcasting at 95.3 megahertz frequency modulation from the top of 1000 Elm Street. Our studios are located at 1045 Elm Street and licensed to Manchester Public Television Service in Manchester, New Hampshire, USA. Contact us by email at WMNH953@gmail.com or through our website at WMNHradio.org.
Can't wipe the windblown smile from across my face. It's just the old man and me, washing his truck at the Sinclair station in the land of the free. His mother, Adeline's family, came on a ship, cut coal and planted a seed down in them drift mines of Pennsylvania, in the land of the free. Land of the free. In the land of the free. 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 In the land of the free. When I go out in my if you're the wrong color skin, I'm standing crying. You grow up looking over both your shoulders in the land of the free. And we got more people locked up than the rest of the world, right here in red, white, and blue. I'm standing crying. Incarceration's become big business. It's harvest time out on the avenue. Land of the free. Land of the free. Land of the free. Land of the free. Move on, there's nothing to see. Land of the free. In the land of the free. I'm standing crying. I'm standing crying. So how many daughters? Tell me how many sons do we have to put in the ground before we just break down and face it? We got a problem with guns. In the land of the free. Down at the border, they're gonna put up a wall. Concrete and rebar, steel beams. I'm standing crying. High enough to keep all those filthy hands off of our hopes and our dreams. I'm standing crying. People who just want the same things we do.
President Donald Trump signed the government funding bill, officially averting another shutdown. The government was set to run out of money at midnight Friday. This bill provides more than $330 billion in funding for a number of agencies, including the Departments of Homeland Security, State, and Justice. But the legislation didn't include the $5.7 billion the president wanted for a border wall. Congress only approved about $1.4 billion, and that money will build 55 miles of a new barrier. The insufficient border wall funding prompted President Trump to follow through on his plan to declare a national emergency. That executive order is expected to face significant legal challenges.
I woke up in the White House. Oh my God, I'm president. I'm so rich and I'm an ass. And there's a wig on my head. I just FaceTime Putin. I told him I'm his biggest fan. Got so much scandal on the front page. Holy shit, let's build a wall. Ooh, I can tweet so well. Wonder if I can say the N-word. Wait, can I really say the N-word?
North Korea, North Korea, in North Korea, North Korea, in North Korea, North Korea, North Korea,
North Korea. I woke up in Donald Trump's body. So orange, overweight, and slightly balding. Now I got no choice but to ruin this country. I can't believe that it's Freaky Friday. It's Freaky Friday in Donald Trump's body. I eat pizza the wrong way and I drink water like a widow.
auto sequence starts.
Hey everybody, welcome. It's that time again. Matt Connarton Unleashed in the Afternoon. We're live on WMNH 95.3 FM, emanating from downtown Manchester, New Hampshire, streaming online, of course, at WMNHradio.org. You can get us from anywhere. And of course, we're also on Channel 97 Comcast if you're in the Manchester area, and on Facebook via Facebook Live on the Matt Connarton Unleashed Facebook page. I see Jenny in the Facebook Live chat. Steve Pascucci is in there. He says, it sure looks lonely at the top. Have a great night. It is lonely at the top, Steve Pascucci. I think, Howard Stern, I remember hearing him talk about that once, how when you're at the top of the heap in the world of broadcast radio, it's very, very lonely. And boy, can I relate. Let's see. Oh, Steve also says they just grabbed the shooter in Aurora, Illinois. There was an active shooter situation, and apparently they got him. So that's good. That's good news. Let's see. Today is Friday. Almost said December, February 15th, 2019. Here here on planet Earth. Well, I suppose depending on what side of the international date line you're on, right? Let's see. I'm running on very little sleep, so I might be a little silly today, but it's Friday, so why not? By the way, I love that song. So the song that I opened with, Land of the Free by Killers, or The Killers, I should say. Not a band I'm a huge fan of. I could always kind of take them or leave them, but I really love that song. That was suggested to me by Fred Boenig from the dailyripple.org, and Fred always sends me a lot of great stuff, and that is an epic track. I absolutely love it. I have a couple other things in mind that we might play a little bit later in the show, a couple of things that might surprise you, things that aren't necessarily political. But we'll see. We'll see as the show progresses, because we do have much to discuss in terms of politics. Another very big day, kind of like every other day, in the sense that there's a lot of big days in politics these days. I don't know if you all have noticed, but we live in a time that's very, very busy, and there seems to be quite a bit going on. The number to call is 603-250-6007 if you would like to chime in and opine. 603-250-6007. And speaking of chiming, apparently, and we'll get to, I know, Trump declared his national emergency and all of that. More like an international emergency, really, but yeah. We'll get into all that in a moment. But Jenny alerted me to this earlier. Apparently, another gentleman has licked a doorbell quite vociferously and has been caught on camera doing so. Now, I talked about a previous doorbell licker on the show. How long ago was that? Like 2 months ago? 3? I don't know. The time, it all blurs together. Obviously, it all blurs together because at the opening of the show, I almost said December 15th instead of February. So my concept of time is somewhat limited. But so there was a doorbell licker, and I had talked about this guy on the show and kind of speculated, why does someone do this and whatnot. And it ended up being, we isolated that clip and posted it on YouTube, and it's got something like 2,500 views on YouTube. Apparently, people really enjoy hearing me discuss that subject. So it's good to revisit it because we have a brand new doorbell licker, apparently in Florida, and we'll talk about him in just a moment. I have a theory. About why this happens, and it might surprise you. But we have someone on the phone. Let's take this call. Hi, welcome to Matt Connarton Unleashed. Who's this?
I'm too nervous to say.
You're too nervous to say.
I'm too nervous to answer your question.
What was my question?
This is who I was.
Oh, are you? Well, as Steve Pascucci pointed out in the Facebook live chat, it's lonely at the top. So you're probably just very intimidated to be calling into the show. And I understand. Believe me, Dave Ridley, I understand. This is Dave Ridley, isn't it?
Stage fright.
See, that way you don't have to say your name. I just say it for you. Say my name, say my name. Do you like that song? That's my favorite Destiny's Child track. How about you?
Never heard of her.
Never heard of Destiny's Child? Have you never heard of Beyonce? She's a beautiful woman. She's married to Jay-Z. Both very, very talented.
I think I've heard the name.
Of course you have. Hello, Dave Ridley. What is on your mind, sir? Dave Ridley from theridleyreport.com. Haven't heard from you in a very long time. Frankly, I was becoming concerned. We were going to be sending out a search party soon. And we were even going to, we were considering... this is a discussion that was happening here in the offices. We were considering discussing launching a reality show that would be web-based, but we'd probably shop it around, called Where in the World is Dave Ridley? This was all in the works. This is how concerned we were.
Oh, I'm honored. But what's on my mind is a Bitcoin legislation.
Uh-oh. Well, Bitcoin legislation. By the way, Dave, my understanding is, just a quick sidebar, but it does involve, I'm not sure if it's Bitcoin itself or cryptocurrency, because more broadly, because there's other cryptocurrency other than Bitcoin, because I never got into it myself. But I saw this article, and I think I shared it out online, but it was too lengthy and in-depth to get into. What happens when a cryptocurrency banker dies, I think was the title of the article, because apparently if someone who manages a particular cryptocurrency, if they die, then everyone who had that particular cryptocurrency is just kind of SOL because they can't get access to it. Do you know anything about this, Dave Ridley? And does this have anything to do with the legislation that you wanted to discuss?
In answer to your question, I think what you're talking about is an exchange. That somebody ran an exchange.
Yes.
They were the only one with. It was such a small or crappy exchange that he was the only one with the password. So when he died, he took the exchange down with him.
It all died with him. You really can take it with you, Dave Ridley, it turns out.
So that would be like, if only one person had the password, just PayPal, right? Like, you could do this with any company or any anything that holds money, this could happen with.
That's true. That's true.
This is an exchange. This is not a cryptocurrency.
Okay.
At least not the incident that I think you're talking about. It's just someone running a bad business, but it wasn't. None of the cryptocurrencies were damaged by it. In fact, the price should have gone up if all those cryptocurrencies were lost. Does that make sense? The price of cryptocurrencies that were lost, each currency is probably now worth a little bit more because of the
that creates scarcity.
Mistake.
Yeah, no, that makes sense actually. Interesting. Okay, you know far more about this
the reason for that would be just like there's apparently $190 million of cryptocurrency now that people can't get to.
Ouch! That sounds like a whole lot of cryptocurrency.
Yeah, so that's why when you own cryptocurrency, you don't put it on an exchange and let it sit there.
Yeah,
you can help it.
Right. Yeah, a calamity could ensue. So, Dave, tell us about the legislation that you're concerned about.
Not concerned necessarily.
Oh.
It's actually a fairly positive piece of legislation.
Oh, good.
There is a bill to make it so that you can pay the state and presumably pay your taxes in Bitcoin in New Hampshire.
Oh, okay, interesting. Now, do you know? I mean, in other states, do other states allow for that, or has there been similar legislation in other states, or? Because I can imagine.
I've never heard of a state allowing it. I think Japan allows it.
Because I can imagine how New Hampshire would be kind of the pioneers in that, given the libertarian movement here and the cryptocurrency movement. It does seem like we would be the first to do that. But what would be the advantage of doing that? Or is there an advantage doing that using cryptocurrency as opposed to just converting it to, federal currency and just, paying it that way? Or is there, or is it just a matter of ease of use or whatever?
I suppose the less you use the federal dollar, the less you're sort of helping the federal government.
Mm-hmm.
And for those of us who are focused on the bad aspects of the federal government, like the fact that it, tortures people, runs gun confiscations, and war on drugs, and so it's just kind of a waste of our money anyway. And at best, at worst, it's harmful to us. So if you're not using their dollar, you're not supporting them as much.
Right. Although I don't know, Dave, about the war on drugs. I think I try to be an optimist. I think any day now we're going to win this thing. I'm kidding, of course.
I would like to congratulate drugs for winning the war on drugs.
Yes. What a great day that'll be. I think we should, whoever's running the DEA at the time, when that day inevitably comes, should pose under a giant mission accomplished banner on a battleship or a carrier of some kind. That'd be very exciting. I'm kidding, of course. No, longtime listeners who don't know, longtime listeners do know, but anyone new who doesn't know, I am deeply opposed to the war on drugs. I like to refer to it as the government's war on the American people, and I know that's something we agree on. Actually, all of your criticisms of the government that you just listed off are criticisms that I absolutely agree on. So where does this legislation stand, Dave?
I guess it passed the committee a couple of weeks ago unanimously.
Oh, good. Okay. No, that's a cool thing. So we'll see what happens, and then if it works out, maybe other states will follow suit. Do you know if so? It passed the committee unanimously, so doesn't sound like. I mean, have you seen or heard anyone kind of speaking out against it? Because I'm sure there are people who there's people who oppose cryptocurrency in the macro anyway, because they think it leads to.
I would have expected
things.
There would be some opposition, because if you think about it, the bill requires certain state agencies to make changes so that they can accept it.
Yeah.
And I can't imagine a bureaucrat wanting to do more work.
See, I don't know though, Dave. So now maybe the reason we haven't been. See, I would imagine some bureaucrats being a little bit conflicted on that, because on the one hand, you might think, okay, they don't want to make more work, but on the other hand, don't bureaucrats kind of like it when they when there is more work to do because they can kind of justify their positions and sort of, the bureaucracy itself kind of becomes, I mean, I think from a libertarian perspective, right, the bureaucracy itself is kind of it's almost like a self-fulfilling sort of thing, right? Because the bureaucracy makes more work for itself, so then the bureaucracy can justify itself and continue to make itself bigger by continuing to make more work for itself, and it just kind of goes on and on. So there might be some bureaucrats that are like, hey, this is something new that we'll have to do. This is great. This will keep us employed for the indefinite future as we milk this whole process of making the government technologically and systemically able to accept Bitcoin. This might be an exciting opportunity for some bureaucrats.
Okay, yeah, I hadn't thought about it that way.
Yeah.
So you were asking earlier what some of the advantages to doing this would be, and the idea that if the more things that it's used for, the more it's there to make sure we don't become Venezuela, right? So if Bitcoin were, the American currency, or if it were, a prominent American currency, and something went wrong with the dollar, which it eventually will, then you've got a backup.
Right.
And the more people are already using it, the smoother that transition will be.
That makes sense. Are you, I mean, as objectively as you can say, Dave, are you, I got all these questions for you because we haven't talked in a while, so I'm glad you brought this up. Are you optimistic about the long-term prospects of cryptocurrency? Because, and again, you know much more about it than I do. I've not gotten involved in cryptocurrency at all myself, so I only know what the media reports, what I see in the mainstream media on it, which obviously can be misleading. Are you optimistic about the long-term prospects of it? Because it seems like there's progress, and then there's setbacks, and then maybe there's more progress, but then there's more setbacks. And, an example of a setback being this guy who died and apparently took all the passwords with him, and then there's $190 million worth of cryptocurrency that's gone. I mean, how are you feeling about it in the long term, Dave?
Over the long term, optimistic, but not about every currency. I mean, there are hundreds or thousands of different cryptocurrencies out there now.
Yeah.
Some of them are just jokes, literally, and people just made them for fun. But it seems likely that 2 or 3 of them at least will sort of become a really big deal at some point in time. And if one of them were to go through a process what we call moneyization, like there historical precedents, I guess, in history where a country monetizes gold, it suddenly becomes a currency and not just a shiny piece of metal.
Okay.
Worth a lot at coin stores. If it really becomes the money that people are using, then it tends to drive the price way up. So eventually, there's enough demand in the world for a currency that doesn't inflate.
Mm-hmm.
That's such a rare thing. There's not one in all the fiat currencies.
Yeah.
And so there's enough demand out there, especially if there's some kind of a hyperinflationary crisis in a real sized country, then there's definitely a case to be made that eventually it will go up in value dramatically. But if it doesn't, that's good too, because that means we haven't had a huge crisis that requires us to use it, and it's just sort of there to help be a hedge against governments inflating their money too much.
Okay. Is Bitcoin still the big one? Because you mentioned there's so many. Are there literally? By the way, you said thousands. Are you exaggerating, or is that literally true? Are there actually thousands of different cryptocurrencies at this point?
Yeah, I think there are thousands. There may be more than thousands now. Maybe it's tens of thousands for all I know.
Wow!
Because it's so easy. It's so easy to make one.
Yeah.
I had a piece of software I got that'll let me start one if I wanted to.
Yeah.
And it would have been very easy to start one and start doing something with it, play around with it, talk about it, get people to buy it. I could have done all that stuff if I'd wanted to. It would have been easy. And I don't have any technical skill, so it's really not a difficulty. But the problem is that when you make one like that, or you don't back it up or don't have a real project going, people are just not going to care about it. It's not going to be worth anything.
See, now that kind of bums me out a little bit because Connarton coin was going to be rolling out on President's Day. Now I'm kind of rethinking it. I'm kidding. Although it sounds good, doesn't it, Connarton coin? All right. So, hey, so Dave, while I have you on the line, this is a completely different topic, but I'm curious to get your opinion. So there's been another doorbell licker in Florida. I have a theory about these guys who go around licking doorbells. I think that doorbells, probably the materials that they use to construct them, have some sort of nutrients within them that these people need and are craving nutritionally. What do you think?
Yeah, you got to have your plastic. Speaking of which, I think there's now like sort of a plastic-backed cryptocurrency.
Oh.
I mean, it's not exactly. It's like more complicated than that. But what they've done is they've made it so that you can get paid cryptocurrency by picking up like trash plastic.
Mm-hmm.
This is becoming a thing, I guess, in some third world countries. People they get money on their phone for the more plastic they bring in, and it's like they get cryptocurrency for it.
And these doorbell lickers are trying to mine for cryptocurrency through the plastic that are made to construct the doorbells.
Yeah, something like that.
It all makes sense now. See, Dave Ridley, I knew that you and I together could solve this and figure this out, why this epidemic is occurring.
But it's the kind of problem you want to have.
Yes. Well, I wouldn't want to have a problem where I have an urge to go around licking doorbells. That would just be strange. Plus, there's legal ramifications. Where are you, Dave? Are you outside? Are you walking or something?
Yeah, I'm not taking a walk.
Ah, yes. Very, very good. Well, Dave, what's new on the Ridley Report? Again, we haven't talked in a while. Do you have any exciting new videos on there? I know you're always filming and interviewing and talking with politicians and bureaucrats and other folk.
Well, the new thing I'm doing lately is I'm gradually collecting a Winston Churchill costume.
Okay.
And the plan is to just walk up to government buildings in my Churchill outfit and speak my mind to them as the original Winston would have.
All right. Now, you said you're gradually collecting the costumes, so what do you mean? So it's not like you can just, this isn't something you can just go online and order? Like you have to sort of piece it together?
That's what I'm doing. I'm just getting one thing at a time at the best price I can. It'll probably take a couple months before I do anything.
Yeah.
But I'll get video of it whenever I do it. I can do a pretty good Churchill imitation.
Can you? Would you like to give us a preview now, Dave? I'll close my eyes and pretend that it's Winston Churchill.
It's rather difficult to repurpose oneself into an entirely new frame of speech.
No, I understand.
Walking, as it were.
No, I understand.
It is possible.
I probably shouldn't have put you on the spot like that, Dave. You're not a dancing bear. And, I shouldn't have. But I would be curious in the future to, I do enjoy characters and historical figures even more so. So that would be wonderful. And then so once you have the costume together, will that be a standard thing? Like every interaction that you have while doing these interviews will be as Winston Churchill?
It's just more like a chance to do some street theater, and it gives me the ability to walk up to a government building while there's no meeting going on. Normally I have to go somewhere at a certain time and do ambush interviews or whatnot.
Yeah.
Because that's when the government meeting is going to be. But if I could just walk up to a government building just because it's standing there and make something useful out of the interaction with it, which I think I can,
right,
then that may be of some value.
Right. And they can't kick you out or try to keep you out if you're Winston freaking Churchill, right? I mean, that would be some pretty bad PR.
I wouldn't have to go inside. I just stand outside and just speak my mind. I might bring a megaphone, but I wouldn't turn it up very loud.
Right. Right. No, that's very cool, Dave. Well, I look forward to I look forward to seeing some of those videos when they're ready. And
don't don't hold your breath. It's going to be
Might be a while.
months before I have this again. I ordered some of it from China. It's not even going to get here till late March.
Oh, wow. Yes, yes. All right, Dave. Well, Dave Ridley, thank you so much for the call, my friend. It's wonderful to hear from you. And please plug the Ridley Report.
GreatLaReport.com.
I love it. All right, Dave Ridley from the Ridley Report. Thank you for the call, my friend. And hey, don't be such a stranger.
Oh, you're most welcome.
What?
You are most welcome.
Oh, yes. Sorry, I don't hear very well. I have a lot of hearing loss, and every once in a while, something just sounds garbled. I think they call that nerve deafness. All right, Dave. Thank you. Thank you so much, and we'll talk to you again soon.
Thanks, Matt.
All right. Bye-bye. All right, the great Dave Ridley from the Ridley Report. Nice to hear from Dave. It really has been a while. I think it's been literally months and months. So 603-250-6007 is the number to call. That does open up a line for you, 603-250-6007. So, but yeah, that's my theory about the doorbell lickers. I think there is something within the materials that are used to manufacture these doorbells that these people just crave and they have to get. John Hopwood told me the story, more of an anecdote, really, once on the show about someone who would lick the tar on a freshly paved road because the tar had something in it that this person needed, which I thought was very, very strange and a fascinating visual to imagine. The other possibility, of course, with the doorbell lickers is that it's just some weird fetish, which is probably the more likely scenario there. But I'll tell you what, though, they should be very, very careful because it is cold and flu season, and it wouldn't even have to be that someone else who was under the weather had licked the doorbell. It could just be somebody else who is under the weather or carrying some sort of terrible germs, push the doorbell, and then somebody else licks the doorbell, and now that person has some sort of, flesh-eating virus or something. Well, no, probably not, but maybe a cold or a flu. Let's see. So there is much else to discuss. A very, very busy day. I don't know if y'all have heard, but our president, Donald John Trump, he's been threatening for a while to declare a national emergency because, there's apparently these caravans of migrant children carrying weapons of mass destruction toward our border as we speak at any given moment, and we must repel them by whatever means necessary. So I by the way, I actually think, even though I don't agree with this, I think it is smart politically for Trump to do this, and I'll tell you why. Because by going ahead and signing off on the budget deal, he agreed to the budget deal, which I think only had, $1.7 billion for the wall, for like 55 miles of wall. That's all $1.7 billion gets you for a wall? That's why I still think we should go with my velvet rope idea, and you just have stanchions that could be painted red, white, and blue with little American flags on them. But people respect the rope. You walk up to a velvet rope, unless you're just some sort of uncivilized animal. You're not just going to step over the rope, right? You're going to wait for a bouncer to let you in. So I think that would be very effective and much, much cheaper. Much more economical, and I think it's something we could all be happy with. It would kind of class up the joint a little bit, if you know what I'm saying. So, but of course, these suggestions that I have, nobody ever wants to listen to me. Everybody wants to do whatever's like super expensive, like whether it's a concrete wall, whether it's steel slats. We just have to spend lots of money. We can't go with Matt's idea. So that's fine. I understand that's just how it works, even though I think my ideas are quite ingenious. They're a little bit outside the box, a little bit unconventional, but in my point of view, that doesn't make them any less valid. So someday when I'm president, when I'm in charge, perhaps we'll get the velvet rope. Of course, by that point, there might already be a giant wall. If we have already a wall or steel slats or some sort of fencing or whatever, we don't need a velvet rope in addition to that. But what I would still do is put the velvet rope at the checkpoints that people go through to enter the country legally. I think we should have velvet ropes there because, again, it kind of lets people know, hey, this is a classy place. You know, you can't just come walking in, even at a legal checkpoint. You know, you still gotta, you know, we gotta, like, kind of like they used to do outside at Studio 54. You know, back in the 1970s, when I would spend a lot of time at Studio 54, that was what we had to do. We'd stand outside the Velvet Rope and. What's his name? Steve, what was the guy's last name from Studio 54? He was kind of they made a movie about him. I think it was just called 54. And, you know, he would, LaBelle? Was it Steve LaBelle? I feel like that's close, but maybe not it. It'll come to me. I don't know why it even matters. Why does any of this matter? Why does anything matter, right? I mean, it's all, you know, for all we know, an asteroid could hit the Earth tomorrow and we'll all be dead, and none of this will have mattered. But the point is, if you have velvet ropes at the legal points of entry, it lets people know, hey, this is a big deal coming into America. You know, you want to come in here, maybe you should wear a sport jacket or something. You can't just come in here all willy-nilly. What does that even mean, willy-nilly? It's such an odd phrase. I got to look up the etymology of that. This is probably a guy named willy-nilly who used to just do things just sort of carelessly and without much thought, and then so now we call that doing things willy-nilly. Hi, welcome to Matt Connarton Unleashed. Who's this?
C'est Jean-Claude.
Jean-Claude. Boy, we have a lot of French people interacting with the show lately. Who would think in Manchester, New Hampshire? Hello, Jean-Claude. What can we do for you? And might I just also add oui or something?
Hello? Hello?
Hello, Jean-Claude.
Hello?
Hello. Monsieur
yes,
Claude. Pardon?
Studio 54.
Yes.
Tu t'appelles Steve Rubel?
Oh, it was Rubel. I knew I was close. I think I said Lubel. Rubel. I knew that wasn't quite it. Steve Rubel, yes. Or as your people might say, Steve Rubel or something. That's really kind of the same thing.
Au revoir, baby.
Au revoir. All right. Jean-Claude leaves us, but I'm glad that he was helpful with that. I would expect him to know, because back when I used to, in the 70s, when I would party at Studio 54, I would often see Jean-Claude there, and I could tell you some stories about that guy, but they would not be appropriate for this program at this time of day on this station. Let's just say, a bit salacious, some of these stories, or as they might say in French, salacious. I'm quite fluent in French, actually. Not at all, really. I know a few French words. Like, I know, like, oui, oui is yes, right? Or yes, yes. And, French fries and, French toast. And, I know the food items because that's important. I mean, at the very least, I know about the French food, right? Okay. Trump declares national emergency at border. This is from thehill.com. So if you are not aware, here's what I started to say before. I think politically this is actually a smart move, even though I disagree. I absolutely disagree that there's a national emergency, and I disagree that this is what we need. And I also believe, as I mentioned on the show yesterday, and Trump said while he was talking about it, that, the administration will get sued, this will be challenged, it'll get tied up in court, and then it'll get tied up in court again, and then it'll get tied up in court again. He himself said all of this during his announcement, his press conference, whatever. But here's what I think is smart about it politically. It's a way to mollify the base, because this was his big promise. Going to build a wall, going to build a wall. This way, by doing a national emergency, it kind of, I think, inoculates him a little bit from accusations that he caved. Because when he did cave, when he gave in after we had the 35-day government shutdown, and he finally said, okay, we'll go with what Chuck and Nancy want to do, getting nothing. I mean, this is the guy who pretends he wrote The Art of the Deal. After getting nothing and damaging the economy for 35 days because, government shutdowns do damage the economy. Trillions of dollars, a chunk of which will not be recovered, according to the Office of Budget and Management's own estimates. something like $3 trillion. Down the chute. Anyway, so he caved on that, and he did receive some criticism for caving on that, and getting nothing in return, and just sort of declaring victory, but there was no victory for him. And politically, Nancy Pelosi seemed to benefit tremendously from that. Now, I've been very, very critical. I was critical through that entire process, and I still am, of both Trump and the Democrats, Chuck and Nancy specifically, because on the one hand, I don't agree with Trump's position on this, and I tend to agree with the Democrats on matters of immigration and illegal immigration. However, the disappointment that I have with the Democrats on this is, and we've talked about this on the show quite a bit, so if you're a regular listener, forgive me if I'm repeating myself, but just quickly, my criticism of the Democrats has been they've not used DACA as any sort of negotiating tool, and the DACA recipients continue to be left in limbo, and they seem to be pretty much forgotten about. And I've said, and I went through a whole list of possible scenarios. I'm not going to recount them all now, but just briefly, basically what I said is they should say to the president, okay, you want your wall? We're willing to give you X money for the wall. Not the full $5.7 billion, but we'll give you X amount of dollars toward the wall in exchange for you have to do this for the DACA recipients. At the very least, you have to undo the rescission of DACA. And then, okay, you won't agree to that? Okay, we'll give you this much money for the wall, but in exchange for this, you have to undo the rescission of DACA and promise that you'll sign DACA into law once we pass it through Congress, permanently codifying it into law, etc. So anyway, so I've been critical all around. There are no heroes in this story. What I think is smart about what Trump has done politically here, though, is so he caved, he took some guff for it, and then he appeared to be caving again by agreeing to this border deal. But now, by declaring a national emergency, even though this isn't going to fly, it would appear, even though it looks like it's going to get tied up in court, as Trump himself said, he said, we're going to do this, and it's going to get challenged, and we're going to get sued, and et cetera, et cetera. So this is going to take a while. It's very interesting to me that he did that. He kind of, it's almost as though, like it was a way of lowering expectations in a way, because the way I took it is he's basically saying, look, I'm doing the best I can here. So it's a way to mollify the base. So no one can really credibly say, although Ann Coulter continues to really just kind of crap all over him, which is fun to watch. I must tell you, one of the few times I enjoy Ann Coulter. Most of the time I'm horrified by her. But it gives him a kind of an out so that he can say to his base, look, this is what I ran on. This is what I promised you. And I'm trying everything I possibly can. Negotiating with the Democrats didn't work because they want open borders, which they don't really. No one's arguing for open borders. Literally no one that I can think of on the left is arguing for open borders. But that's, what Trump says, and that's what the Republicans like to say. Okay. But Trump can continue to say that. They wanted open borders, and they're not getting their way, and I made sure of that. And in the end, I'm going to be able to give you your wall anyway. I declared a national emergency. As we went over yesterday on the show, and I didn't realize this, how common national emergencies actually are. There's been 31 prior to Trump doing this. I think a couple of them were Trump's. And then, various presidents prior to Trump have done national emergencies. It's actually much more common than I thought. So, but this is a way for Trump to be able to say to his base, look, I'm doing the best I can. I'm trying so hard, I even resorted to this, a national emergency. So I'm really doing the best I can. And that will be enough for the base. And, as I always say on the show, I mean, it really is, to use a phrase I see Dr. Jeff Cassell using a lot online, it is a cult of personality when it comes to Trump. And there really is very little that he can ever do or fail to do that will disappoint his base in any way. Look, after the first cave-in, after the, where he acquiesced to end the 35-day government shutdown, I remember, I'll give you an example, Mediaite, which is a site that I like to use a lot. I get a lot of material from that and a lot of clips from that. Mediaite.com. But the one criticism I do have of Mediaite, aside from their insight embedded player, is horrible. It's very glitchy, and I hate that. But anyway, the one other, just journalistically, the one other criticism I have of Mediaite is some of the headlines on their articles can be a bit misleading. They do kind of indulge in the clickbait a little bit. And here's an example. Right after the 35-day shutdown ended, Mediaite had a headline something like, conservatives furious with Trump, or bailing on Trump and being very critical of Trump, or his base has turned against him or something. And then I click the article, and literally it's like, okay, Ann Coulter's mad at him, and a couple of conservative columnists who I wasn't even familiar with are tweeting critical things about him, and a few other people on Twitter who say they voted for him are mad, and that's it. So the headline makes it sound like, oh, Trump's base, they're really upset. Trump finally found the one thing that could actually upset his own base. He failed on the border wall. He caved in on the border wall, and he's not going to fulfill that promise. And then, you read the article, it's like, no, Ann Coulter's mad, and some other people who are kind of inconsequential in the media sphere might be a little bit perturbed, and that's really it. So, to me, I think this is a smart thing for him to do politically. Now, again, I don't agree with it. I don't agree with the wall. Trump lies in his justifications for the wall. I continue to think that it's actually just blatantly racist, frankly, when I hear people do this. Well, so-and-so was illegal by an illegal alien, so that's why we need a wall. Statistically, undocumented immigrants, which is my preferred term, I like to talk about human beings as, human beings, not use these dehumanizing terms like illegal aliens, so I understand why the right does it and the psychological impact that has. But undocumented immigrants actually engage in less criminal activity statistically than American citizens, which makes perfect sense if you think about it. If you're here illegally and you don't want to get deported, you probably don't want to mess around and do illegal things and end up in trouble. You want to, if you're in the country illegally and this is something you need to be concerned about what could happen to you, you probably aren't going to go out of your way to do things that are going to put you in direct engagement with law enforcement, right? So it kind of makes sense that undocumented immigrants tend to get into less trouble. But when I see people like Trump trotting out these families, some of whom, when he in the past when he's done this, some of them have actually rebuffed him and said, hey, stop using the murder of our loved one as a political ploy here. That's not okay. We're not okay with that. But a lot of families apparently are okay with it. And, we have this organization, I think, what are they called? The Angel Moms and so forth. But to me, it's when whenever you take an entire group or subset of people in a given population and you try to take some specific instances of crimes and then ascribe that to this entire group, I think by definition that's racism. Sometimes I call it xenophobia when I'm trying to be kind. Sometimes I get tired of being kind and I just call it racism. To me, it's very racist. Oh, his ears must have been ringing. Hello to Dr. Jeff Cassell, who joins us in the Facebook live chat. Quite a conversation, by the way, the other day with Dr. Cassell's friend Q Public, who called in talking about the deep state. Q Public, and I did isolate the clip and I put it up on YouTube. Q Public had the nerve to call this show and claim that Matt Connarton Unleashed is a river of lies. A river of lies, ladies and gentlemen. I couldn't believe it. I was deeply hurt by that. I don't even go near the river. I don't, I did go canoeing once when I was a kid, but, I'm very afraid of drowning. I almost drowned once in a lake in Sanford, Maine when I was a young lad. I'm actually not afraid of the water. I'm kidding. But Q Public called us a river of lies. It was very, very hurtful. I was in tears. I began to weep openly on the air, which was terribly embarrassing for me. So Trump has declared a national emergency. Now, this is not satisfying to everyone. I did mention Ann Coulter, and Ann Coulter, I'm going to play the audio. I don't know if I'll play this entire clip, but this is her on KABC in Los Angeles. And I won't tell you the key phrase in this that really got my attention and it kind of made me laugh. I'll just I'll go ahead and play it. But this was a radio appearance that she had done immediately after Trump's White House Rose Garden speech. And it does kind of cut against my theory that, well, this will be enough to mollify the base because he looks like this is so important to him that he's willing to do something drastic to do this. But Ann Coulter apparently is not going to cut him any slack at all, no matter what he does. And maybe it's because, by the way, that she feels some resentment toward him over the fact that, she did, after all, write an entire book called In Trump We Trust. So she might still be feeling a little bit burned by that. But this is Ann Coulter this afternoon on KABC in Los Angeles.
Joining us to respond to that is
the
Ann
woman
Coulter.
that Trump doesn't know, Ann Coulter.
Good morning.
Thank God he's relieved me of any responsibility for what he's been doing.
Well, let's discuss.
That was the biggest favor anyone could do to me today.
Let's discuss why. Because,
by the way, so not to interrupt the clip, but the reason what she's talking about there is apparently Trump was asked about Ann Coulter during the press conference, and he's been very dismissive of her because that's kind of what Trump does. He doesn't really go out of his way to attack her, but he's just been kind of because they're on the same side ideologically, right? But he's been kind of dismissive of her. And again, I mean, aside from her, who else is really that upset? I mean, I'm sure even Mitch McConnell said on the Senate floor when he announced yesterday that this was going to be Trump's chosen course of action. Even McConnell said, I support the president in this.
You've been...
The country's over, that's why.
I saw that tweet that you put out
there.
there.
I hope you're enjoying having a radio show. Actually, your radio show can keep going because you barely talk about politics. There's really no point.
Exactly.
In anybody else talking about this. It's just fooling the rubes with the national emergency. Oh, and I noticed, I just woke up before to call into your show.
Wait, you didn't see the press conference live? You didn't hear him say?
No, I just heard that for the first time.
Oh my God.
But I checked to make sure that I was right. Didn't take a lot of. I didn't have to go to a tarot card reader to figure out, is the president going to totally F over his base? Went to sleep last night thinking, yes, I think the answer is yes. I mean, more than any other presidential mandate in the history of the nation, Trump's mandate was to build wall. Other presidents who allegedly, and to some extent did have mandates, LBJ not to get the country blown up, or FDR not to be Hoover and create Hooverville, to do something about the Depression. But it wasn't for, one specific policy, but moreover, any other president, Ronald Reagan, get the hostages home, win the Cold War, stop backing down to the Soviet Union. Yeah, these are mandates, but it was also, this is someone we trust as a competent man to run the government. This is a decent person who ought to be the commander-in-chief. Okay, none of that was true with Trump. No one thought, oh, yeah, look, he was governor of the biggest state in the union. He used to run the CIA. He was Reagan's vice president. He was, he was FDR's. No, it was one thing, the promise he made every single day at every single speech.
Yeah.
So forget the fact that he's digging his own grave. This is just, look, the only national emergency is that our president is an idiot.
Well, you get no argument.
I didn't expect that. Jenny is here. Hello.
Hello.
Now, breaking on KABC. What do you think is going to happen with this money that he thinks he's going to be able to get by declaring this an emergency? Is it going to be blocked in the courts and he's just never going to get it done and now he can blame the courts?
I think that's what he and Jared and Ivanka and the rest of the dream team are hoping, because for some reason he really doesn't want to build a wall. Incidentally, he is not incompetent and an imbecile on every single issue, and I think it's worth
That's what you call damning with faint praise.
saying this. Perhaps I'll write it up next week. My last column. Just kidding. I'm going to spend the rest of my columns denouncing the president for the rest of my life. But in defense of Trump supporters and those of us who fell for his BS, so, don't get on your high horse, Jillian. Look, Trump has been perfectly competent at a much more complicated subject, the judiciary. Donald Trump, until Brett Kavanaugh was presented to Donald Trump, he didn't know Brett Kavanaugh walked the earth. I promise you, to this day, he has not read one word of any Supreme Court decision, and yet his judicial selections, what does he do? What we expected him to do on the central reason he is president, immigration, farm it out to people who know what they're doing. Thus, I again, deeply, sincerely, from the bottom of my heart, thank the president for saying we haven't talked for a year, because he wasn't listening to me basically from November 8th until then. But, he turns it over to the Federal Society. Why? This is why my first two columns right after Trump was elected were somewhat hysterical, warning what was coming and hoping I was wrong, when he didn't make Chris Kobach head of Homeland Security and made that daft woman who's a special friend of General Kelly's. Where's Kirsten Nielsen on this? This is the biggest immigration. This is the worst open borders the country has ever had under the president who ran against open borders. And as for the national emergency that he declared today specifically, number one, as my assiduous readers and fans know, since November 8th, and actually before then in Trump, we chose one of the wonderful things about Trump the campaigner as opposed to Trump turning everything over to Jared Kushner as president, is most of his main campaign promises, and of course the biggest ones having to do with immigration, are all things that are 100% within the authority of the president. No, he never needed Congress to build a wall. He could have started building day one. And I've been saying that since before the election and immediately after the election. Renegotiating trade deals, 100% his responsibility. Deciding not to continue wars, pointless wars in Afghanistan and Syria, and apparently, about a dozen other countries in the world that most Americans don't even know we're at war at. This was the guy who said, why are we killing the best Americans? Iraq was a scam, let's pull out. Has any of that happened when he needed your votes before?
Listen to her now.
That's the end of the clip. But
yeah, but listen to her now.
That's all fair. Like, I don't like Ann Coulter, but everything she said there is completely fair.
But she has in the past been a huge supporter of the war machine. She was very derogatory towards Congressman Ron Paul when he spoke about pulling us out of wars. And she called that insanity, yet here she is saying that this is good now. Not that I'm knocking it. Don't get me wrong.
Yeah.
I'm all in favor of getting us out of war and trying to be the policeman of the world. But the way that she flip-flops, shall we say, is rather interesting for somebody that claims to be so hardcore.
Although, and I can't believe I'm about to defend Ann Coulter here.
I need to take a picture.
I'm actually going to defend Ann Coulter a little bit. I wouldn't say that she's flip-flopping necessarily, because if you listen to what she's saying there, she's not even necessarily saying that this is her position. But what she's pointing out is she's kind of ticking off a laundry list of things that Trump ran on and saying, look, these are things he hasn't fulfilled. Like when she's talking about the wars, she says, look, Trump said he's going to get us out of these pointless wars. And what happened on Syria? I thought we were getting out. Now we're just dithering, and it looks like we're not leaving. And what about Afghanistan? I thought we were drawing down. Again, we seem to be dithering on that, and we're not leaving.
Obama ran on pulling us out of the unnecessary wars, and for 8 years he sent more troops overseas, and more people died.
Yeah.
Neither side is innocent in this issue of continuously sending our young men and women overseas to fight wars that are sometimes involving civil wars in other countries where they die and come home to us war heroes, but they are gone. And this is ridiculous that this has been going on for so long, people. Obama was 8 years of war. Clinton started war. Obama was in war. Bush was in war. And here we are with Trump.
Bill Clinton really didn't.
We have been a war-based economy since my son was in diapers. And for a parent of a 20-something-year-old, that's pretty sickening to think about.
Yeah. No, I didn't vote for Obama for a second term because I was very disappointed in terms of foreign policy.
He did not, he put more effort into the tax burden on people for not having health insurance than he did on bringing people home. I'm sorry. He promised to close Gitmo. Did it happen? No, it got bigger. And is any of that happening now? No. Over and over again, Republican or Democrat continue to keep us in these wars where people are dying. Our young men and women are dying. For what? For what? Somebody tell me.
Well, it is the top of the hour, so let's take a break. Plus, I got to open a window. It's warm in here.
You are looking rather hot tonight.
Oh, thank you.
Ooh.
It's kind of. It almost feels like summer. It's like mug. It's like not
I
just.
like that.
Yeah, I do too. But it's not just warm in here. It's like it's actually muggy. It feels.
I'm cool with muggy. I will take muggy any day over ice.
It feels humid to me for some reason.
Stop complaining. You're one of those people that complains in wintertime that he wants the summer. In the summertime, he wants it cooler.
Oh, I never complain that I want it cooler.
Well, that's true, I guess.
No, I'm not complaining. I'm just saying though, it feels like it's a different kind of warm. Than it usually is. But I'm going to play this. So this is something completely non-political, but we were talking about it the other day with Kyle Heavey when he was on. No. But this is Joe Sambo.
Oh, no.
And he's a local guy. He's apparently I forget if he's actually from Manchester or if he's just from somewhere in New Hampshire. I think he might be an actual
thought it was
Manchester resident. Yeah. And he's got this track called How We Do. And apparently it's a big hit on iTunes. And I'm sure we'll have him on the show soon for an interview. I would love to do that. So let's play this. John Hopwood has just entered the studio. But we're going to take a break and play this. So this is the big hit song. It's like #1 on the reggae charts on iTunes or something. This is Joe Sambo. This is called How We Do. And then we'll come back and chat some more on Matt Connarton Unleashed in the afternoon. We are live on WMNH 95.3 FM.
To date on what I'm doing, gearing up a clean slate. I'm stepping up to bat, I'm sweeping up the plate. Not even ready, cause today is different for a second. Really, it's nothing but perfection. Gonna show the pretty people how we do. Not every song will have a meaning, must be breathing for a reason. So I try my best relating it to you. So naysayers go home, you can make your soul. Na 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 na. Coming from a time where kids think they're gangsta, talking like a dog, but they're living in New Hampshire. I'm the only one playing reggae in the winter, waiting for the summer, gonna be the epicenter. Never gonna lose my sense of focus, always gonna ride the tidal wave, never gonna lead the wrong direction.
gonna.
President Donald Trump has declared a national emergency to secure money for a border wall. Since he first floated the idea, politicians and pundits have brought up the precedent that might set. They say for better or for worse, a future administration could use the same logic to force action on climate change. For what it's worth, scientists expect climate change is already on track to be an emergency of national proportions. Recent studies show that rising temperatures will likely cause more deaths and more damage to U.S. infrastructure. But it seems most lawmakers would rather not declare it an official emergency, at least not while more democratic options are still on the table. Senator Ben Cardin said that moving forward, quote, "We have Republicans who want to join us on climate change issues. We can win on this issue and have the American people with us and have the global community with us." Some Republicans also seem willing to reach across the aisle, too. Republican Representative Francis Rooney from low-lying Florida has said he would support a carbon tax and a move away from coal power. But to make progress, experts say the U.S. needs to get back on track to hit its commitments under the Paris Climate Agreement. It will need to increase use of natural gas and renewable energy quickly. Preliminary reports show that last year, CO2 emissions in the U.S. rose by 3.4%.
Hello, everybody. Welcome back. It's hour number 2 of Matt Connarton Unleashed in the Afternoon. We are live on WMNH 95.3 FM, emanating from downtown Manchester, New Hampshire, streaming at WMNHradio.org. We're also on Channel 97 Comcast, and of course on Facebook via Facebook Live on the Matt Connarton Unleashed Facebook page. If you want to get in with a call, you'll want to do it relatively soon because it is Friday. Fridays we wrap up a little bit early.
Vendredi.
Indeed, yeah, oui. Because Rob Azevedo will be coming in to do a Granite State of Mind, and usually has live musicians come in and perform live during the show, so they need a little time to set up. Not so bad getting out of here a little early on a Friday.
It smells very funky in here.
It does?
Have you been spraying again?
I have to mark my territory.
You went through your transformation last night, but
yeah, well,
I think you look good with a top knot.
Yeah, a top knot. Oh my goodness! I don't know if you heard earlier. I was talking about how Q Public called in the other day and said that this show was a river of lies, and it was very hurtful and cruel.
Why? When does the truth hurt you?
Okay, that's also hurtful and cruel. How dare you, sir? Now, you have brought in something.
A reading dramatique.
A dramatic reading, for those of you who aren't fluent in French, is what Jean-Claude over here was just saying.
Are we going to talk about your attempt at diplomacy with the Koreans?
Well, I do have.
Or do you get? Does it upset you when people can see you in full Yeti mode?
Oh, I don't know what that has to do with my secret Korean family.
I didn't know Kim Il-jung was so short.
Yeah, he's 4'9", but he wears lifts.
How tall are you when you're really when the moon's out and you're real Yeti?
Yeah,
6'9", 6'9".
The moon does not affect my height. That's deeply
certainly
offensive.
You're being very, very offensive, Hoppy.
It's very offensive.
I don't know. He must have stuck out on you. You didn't see the picture?
Look. Can you not be socially conscious about the race of Yetis and how they should be appropriately spoken to? You showing me some gooba on your phone that I can't see because I'm too blind.
You're a very cruel.
He is
cruel man.
He's terrible.
We should.
We gotta. Somebody shaved him down somewhere along the line and taught him to walk upright.
I suppose so.
Yeah, I belong to a different era.
Yes, you do.
Yes.
Now,
we could say the
Burt Reynolds, no hair on top unless you sport a toupee.
It's not an incest era.
You got a
that
merkin?
You got going on over there.
Got a merkin going on over there.
Jeez, and then it turns gray.
Maddie, I think it's incest. I think that's the thing.
Well, we are.
He picks on you as a Yeti, and I think that he's
No,
jealous.
no,
He's
no.
jealous of your Yetiness.
We are in the
how many people like me, Elven Americans get to meet Kim Il-jung?
I don't think you're that intelligent, darling.
I believe it's.
You want to say? I got the ears.
I believe it's Elfin American. Elven Americans are the family of Elvis.
I nearly F-bombed.
Oh my goodness! I would have had to hit the
Now,
dump
what
button.
did you bring in today? God help us all.
It wasn't me. It's I'm just a messenger.
Oh.
Well, I was hoping you could explain because without context, it doesn't make sense to
Who
the,
are you a
the,
messenger
the
for?
listeners. Yes, who are you a messenger for? We'll approach it that
Melania
way.
Trump.
Melania Trump.
Melania,
She-
you brought a letter from Melania.
Well, you know, she has her.
Oh, you're on a voice name business now.
She has her peccadillos, and one of them is she likes
I don't know if we can say that on the
Irish
air.
literature of the last century.
Peccadillos.
Peccadillos.
Really?
Peccadillo.
Oh God, help us.
I think that's one of the 7
Deadly sins.
Yeah, I was
deadly
gonna
sins.
say
Yeah.
that.
You know, there's a lot of.
Are you going to give me a dramatic reading, Maddie? Because you know how much those turn me on.
Yes, but I need. Tell us why I'm reading this. This is it's a poem titled "The Second Coming" by William Butler. Is it pronounced Yeats or Yates?
Yates.
Yates. That's
He
what I
was
thought.
arguably the great
Seriously,
poet
you don't know Yates?
of the English language in the 20th
Maddie,
century.
you don't know Yates?
I'm not a big poetry guy.
Seriously?
I mean, I
Yeah, but
know- I know
how do
who
you
he
not
is,
know
but,
that?
you know.
Oh my God!
I don't have to
He
know it.
was
I
a-
just know how to read
Oh,
it.
Hoppy, we got to educate him.
He was a member of the Golden Dawn.
The Golden Dong.
The Golden Dawn.
That's
He's
that's-
Irish. He didn't have a golden dong. The Golden Dawn.
That is
Dawn,
a
huh?
Dawn.
that's-
D-A-W-N.
The Golden Dawn.
You know, like the I have
what
to
are you
have.
been up to there, Hoppy?
I have to have Dawn.
I did see something on the Facebook
dishwashing
there that
liquid.
people were playing with glitter in interesting places. Is that you?
I know women that do that, but
Oh, you do you?
That seems very
Oh,
California,
Are
1990s.
you personally known about that? Do you have an intimate
was a long time
knowledge of the
ago.
glitter?
Oh yeah, everybody was. I think that's where your friend with the boot on his head got his ideas.
Well, that's a discussion
now,
for.
Vermin Supreme is entirely not a joke, so you don't go there because I want my purple pony.
He's been on.
Don't you disparage
Is he
my
purple?
Vermin Supreme. I promised a purple pony. Maddie,
purple?
doesn't he promise you one too?
Of course.
I thought he was
I
lavender.
thought it was a red one for you too.
He was
We'll
on
see.
both our shows.
All right, so
Yes.
you want him to read Yates.
No, Melania wants him. to read
Melania
it.
wants
And
him to
why?
read Yates.
And why does Melania want me to read this?
I think it's self-evident if you
All right.
knew Yates, and when you get to the end of the
In
poem.
what vernacular are you looking for? Are you looking for an angry man?
No,
A
and-
passionate man? What is it that
It's
you
not
seek?
me looking for anything.
It's going to be my patented dramatic
this
reading.
might be.
Oh,
They're
my.
still looking for a chief of staff at the
I
White
think
House.
it should be passionate.
Scumpy actually passed this on to me.
I'm
Oh, he
voting
did.
for passionate Maddie.
Right. Well,
He's working tonight.
we'll see. We'll see how I interpret it as I go.
Let's see.
There's just the one word you have to get
Dun,
right.
da-da-da.
Jim
Can he
O'Connell
read
mispronounced
Yates
Gyre?
with passion
Yes.
All
and
right.
fury.
All right. Here we go.
Gyre.
The Second Coming by William Butler Yeats. Turning and turning in the widening gyre, the falcon cannot hear the falconer. Things fall apart. The center cannot hold. Mere anarchy is loosed upon the world. The blood-dimmed tide is loosed, and everywhere the ceremony of innocence is drowned. The best lack all conviction, while the worst are full of passionate intensity. Surely some revelation is at hand. Surely the second coming is at hand. The second coming! Hardly are those words out when a vast image out of Spiritus Mundi. Did I say that right?
Keep going.
Troubles my sight somewhere in the sands of the desert, a shape with lion body and the head of a man. A gaze blank and pitiless as the sun is moving its slow thighs, while all about it real shadows of the indignant desert birds. The darkness drops again. But now I know that 20 centuries of stony sleep were vexed to nightmare by a rocking cradle. And what rough beast, its hour come round at last, slouches towards Bethlehem to be born?
Oh my gosh!
Thank you.
great.
Thank you. I'm going
Except
to.
you blew Spiritus Mundi, which you actually pronounced right.
I did pronounce it right. Yeah.
Oh, that was great.
Thank you.
I had to have Jim O'Connell do it twice, and he mispronounced gyre.
Oh.
Gyre. He had pronounced it gyre, like a gyroscope.
So
a gyre is like,
You're
Yeah.
very into things gyrating lately there, Hoppy.
Ooh,
I
yeah.
can't help but notice that.
hula hoops.
Now, is
Well,
that
there is one over here. Can we see you demonstrate a gyration?
Not me, but is it still here, the hula hoop?
Maddie.
Oh, I have
you-
no idea.
Oh, they're long gone.
Maddie, you read that poem with such passion.
they're over there?
No, there's two
I
poems.
see them.
Yes.
Those are the ones.
Why don't you give it a shot while you're reading the poem?
No.
That would be something.
You do it. Be
with
something
my
to see
with
you
my
doing
bad
it.
back, I was out on the floor, lying on the floor for an hour today.
Now, Maddie, you read very, very sensually beautiful.
You ought to do it with hula hooping.
I don't think I can hula hoop though.
Are you going to take me home tonight?
And hula hoop?
Well, yeah, I drove here.
What the heck with Hoppy?
Are you going to
Really?
gyre?
No, see, this is for Matt Connarton Unsheathed.
That's all you got?
That's a very different program.
Ah, you read me a beautiful, sensual poem.
You
and
get to take
me
it
all
home?
excited, and then you say, "You're not going to take me home."
And I don't think I can hula hoop while I read this. I believe that because the swiveling of the hips while reading poetry is prohibited by the FCC.
I think that the swiveling of the hips would add to it.
Well, I know, but
I vote for swiveling hips.
it is prohibited by the FCC because it's just too much. It'd be too much sexiness
Your
for afternoon
sexiness
drive.
is just too much for the evening drive.
Yes. Hello to Fred Bonig in the Facebook
Be
live chat.
careful, Fred might find you too sexy.
Now, Matt.
Well,
You're gonna cause a problem with Fred.
Matt, I think
Wow.
you should reread
I'm
the
over
line.
here very verklept, from all your reading. I'm very hot, Oi.
I don't know if we can.
I
Even,
need something to cool me down.
can we say verklempt on the air? I don't know. I don't know if we
yes,
can.
we can.
Eclept means
Oh, yes.
what you're called.
Oh, yes. I'm very
You know,
oi.
Anglo-Saxon.
I'm warm and ready.
Oh.
Could you if you're not so hot and bothered, you could
Wow.
reread the hardly are the words out to the troubles my sight. Then you could splice it in and have a classic reading. Because you did.
Really?
Oh, right.
Are you trying to interject like seriousness here?
Yes.
Oh.
I feel this could be a blockbuster.
I'll do that.
Matt reads the poems of William Butler Yeats.
Well, not my favorite poet, but I can go with Yeats.
All right,
Who
I'll
is your favorite poet?
Guess.
T.S. Eliot, because you have a thing for
Negative
anti-Semites.
ghostwriter. I do not have a thing for anti-Semites. Are you kidding me?
That was just a joke.
You really said that? I'm
Yes.
going to hit you when we get off air. I'm just letting you know.
Here's
My
the
cane
cane.
is bigger than your cane. I got news for you, honey.
Fred says, just don't mention his stones.
Ooh.
In
Maddie does
all
have his
caps.
stones in his pocket.
You
I
know-
know they are because I helped him put them there.
Ooh. T.S. Eliot was a pen pal of Groucho Marx. They used to write to each other about. They were both very fond of cats.
Did not know
because
that. Did
because the
not
musical Cats is
know
based
that.
on poems by T.S. Eliot. So
My
he was an
all-time
odd
favorite
guy.
poem is a road diverged between two woods.
Oh, Frost is a great poet, but I didn't realize how
Absolute
great he was
favorite.
until I was older.
Me
Because you're made to read it when you're in
you know
high
that
school.
it was. I really didn't realize how much of an impact there was, especially in the New England region, until coming to New Hampshire and realizing, oh my gosh, Frost was here.
Yeah,
And then
Derry.
going to Southern New
Up
Hampshire
near Franklin.
University and seeing the Frost Center there. I mean, it was really enticing, even as an adult, of how amazing that was to have such an amazing figure in poetry worldwide,
Yep.
attributed to New England, right here at home.
Hello to Christian Cunard, who joins us in the Facebook live chat.
Oh, I love her.
He was a very nasty man,
Who was?
Frost.
Why do you say he's nasty?
That's what his biographers say.
I've
course.
always heard that he was a very grumpy individual.
Right.
He wrote beautifully, though.
Yeah. What was it? Richard Burton, who loved to read poetry, and he taught one semester at Oxford University when he was a famous actor, said, the better the poet, the worse the human being. Some things like
Dickerson.
poetry is something like a
Dickerson,
gift of
it
the
was like,
gods.
for me, that was Emily Dickerson. It was all the negative and the sadness. She would just make me cry.
Oh,
I
yeah.
love poetry, though.
It's a different
I don't
type
think
of
Matt's into a poetry
gift.
guy, is he? Are you a
than
poetry guy, Matt?
Not really, no.
Yeah, but you like music and
Lyricism.
lyrics.
Well, of course,
are
yes.
Poetry.
And I've written a lot of lyrics, but I just
really?
But yeah, but
You've never said that in all these years. You've never said that.
oh, it's true. I've written a lot of songs.
I want to hear your music.
That's for
I wanna
next
hear
Friday.
I want to hear your lyrics.
There's a song that I wrote because I used to be in a band called My Life Crisis, and one of our most popular songs was called "Loser," which I had written, but I can't play it for you on this program because it has a lot of profanity, which I didn't write. The profanity was put in by the singer who got a little liberal with the F-bomb. Yeah.
You are certain you didn't have anything to do with that placement there, buddy?
Positive, but I did
You
write the
were-
lyrics.
You did approve of it, though.
Oh yeah, it was
mean,
great.
It was your thought.
I could make a radio edit of it and play it on the air. Actually,
I think you
I've
should.
a-
I
I've a-
want to hear it.
I do have a good
You're
studio
gonna have to
recording
play
of
this
it.
for me when you get me home.
Mm.
Do you know that Glenn R.J. Ouellette was a great lyricist?
Did not know that.
Yes, yes.
He wrote the lyrics for Damn Yankees.
Yes. Yeah, that song "High Enough" that was written by Glenn.
That-
Although Nugent takes credit for it, but
I need to be high enough to take that and believe it.
well, he shares the songwriting credit with Jack Blades. But yeah.
Did you watch, Hoppy? Did you watch today's glorious speech by President Donald Trump?
Well, I was down at the VA and he was on the tube, but I don't
But
really
he was
watch the
speaking
TV.
to the VA, the veterans. Weren't you all about that?
Uh,
You went after Acosta for not, standing up for people, for
I don't
being
li-
terrible. In
I
front
don't
of the
listen to
angel
stuff
mom.
that triggers me.
It doesn't trigger you.
He triggers me.
He triggers you.
All politicians do. Even little Nancy breaks my heart too.
What about Chuck? Do you like Chuck?
Oh, he was always a expletive deleted.
Oh.
Back when we were in Congress together.
Perhaps we need to realign your chakras.
Oh, Chuck Schumer, and he's cheap too.
I'm mad. I think that he lost that one.
He's
I
cheap,
I got it.
and he's got hair plugs. I don't approve of hair plugs. The only good hair plug job's maybe a little Joe Biden, who's going to run, by the way.
I think I should put a top knot in Matt's head.
Yeah, I'll show you the picture from when
I
he
know
was.
exactly what it looks like. I can totally do it.
So you have seen him full
I've
Yeti?
seen the top knot. Yes, I have.
Oh yeah,
I could do that.
I think he looks better as a full Yeti.
By the way,
I
Fred,
happen to enjoy that full Yeti.
Fred Bonig in the Facebook live chat says there once was a Matt from Nantucket with a voice so sexy you could, and he didn't finish the thought.
I know exactly how to end that
Oh,
one.
my goodness. Yes, well,
Oh, I'm getting verklempt again.
well, I think we all are.
Yes, but only one of us can
my
do it.
favorite limerick is about the man from Kent, but we won't get into there.
Right,
Yeah.
Once was a man from Nantucket, and all he had was a bucket.
Oh my goodness. Well,
I think that Glenn wrote the one about the man from Kent. Kent, Quebec.
Ah,
Oh,
yes,
that would make
yes.
sense.
And we could say it in the
Mais
French.
oui, oui.
The Français.
Oui, oui, parlez-vous français?
Well, we need to write one for where is he from again? Where does he always say he's from?
Van Buren, Quebec.
Yeah, we need to write there once was a man from Van Buren and come up with something that
There
rhymes
once
with that.
was a man from Van Buren who
Who's-
had many sirens a-stirring. No, that stinks.
I have here 3
Oh,
presidential
God, I'm
dollars.
dying here, Maddie. Dying.
Oh my goodness. Well, I did open a window.
Oh, no, it's not. It's your hotness. It's
Oh well,
wearing off,
I understand. I mean,
that reading just kind of threw me over the edge.
I'm a sexy beast, as I think
I need an ice pack.
I think is obvious to all of
Do you,
us.
do you think Rutherford B. Hayes, when it came to presidents, might have been a Yeti? Look at that beard.
You are really trying to spoil my mood, aren't you?
I thought it was
Rutherford B. Hayes.
I thought it was Rutherford.
Rutherford.
I think
Rutherford.
he's jealous
That
of
sounds-
our love.
That sounds like English, though. Rutherford.
I think that's how you say it,
Rutherford.
though.
Rutherford. Well, it's
What are
Luther.
you being stuck up over there?
Well, he's got a very sexy beard, don't you think? Rutherford B. Hayes. Or
Oh,
Rutherford.
I thought you meant
No.
me
No.
or Glenn R.J. Willett.
Glenn doesn't have a beard.
Oh, he did shave it. Yeah.
Matt Scruffy looks good.
What would do you prefer bearded Glenn?
He
or,
has a Van.
Or
Is that a?
unbeard-
That's not even a
unbearded
real
Glenn?
Van Dyke.
How dare you?
I don't think we can say that's not very PC.
How dare you?
Oh, Van Dyke.
Yeah.
Took you a minute there.
I bet you
So
can.
what do you think about Yates there, Maddie? Was that a wonderful read for you?
It
or
was.
Did it click?
I really enjoyed it.
Did it click?
Did it click? Well,
yeah.
define.
Did it fit the day?
Did it fit the day? I guess.
I'm trying to figure out where it was supposed to fit in.
Yes, it
I'm a
fits.
little confused.
It fits the day.
Now, Matt, what do you think he means by 20 centuries of stony sleep were vexed to nightmare by a rocking cradle?
Politics?
No. Jesus crossed 2,000 years of discord.
Oh.
He was a
You sure
member of
he's
the
not
Gold.
talking about government?
He was a member of the Golden Dawn. He was a magus. He practiced
Witchcraft?
the Hermetic arts. Yes.
Jesus.
Oh
did?
yeah. His wife,
Yates was a
Georgie,
Ridgecraft?
did
I didn't know
automatic
that.
writing. Yeah.
Oh, she has something in common with a lot of other good people in New England.
Now, you should automatic writing. You should explain what that is for people who don't know.
Ah, yes.
Why don't you explain?
You explain it. You brought it up.
You explain.
No, you do it.
I can explain
I
it.
want
I
to
just
do it. You do it.
I probably know less about it than either of you, but
Well, why
but
don't
I
you,
know it.
Matt? It is your show.
Oh,
It's
for
when
goodness
you
sakes.
Your program.
Yeah, it's when you write out whatever spirit tells you. You
And
just-
it's not coming from your own mind. Your hand is simply moving.
yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Georgie,
I can write
that was
without
his wife.
looking. Does that mean I can automatic write?
No, I guess you have to be moved by the spirit at that time.
I get moved by spirits all the time.
And Matt, what rough beast? Its hour come round at last, slouches towards Bethlehem to be born. One of the most famous lines in 20th century literature.
I feel like Rough Beast is some sort of a dig at me. And
I think it is too.
Yeah.
That's an anti-Yeti comment.
Is that even in the original poem, or did you put that in there?
Oh, they're talking about a sphinx-like
Who's they?
creature. A sphinx-like creature.
Who's
The
they?
Golden Dawn.
Oh, so you're saying that Yates is an anti-Yeti?
No, it's the Antichrist.
Oh.
You're calling me Yeti's the Antichrist?
I didn't
oh
write.
my
I didn't
This
write
is-
the
How
poem.
dare you?
The
I
hurtfulness.
didn't write the poem.
Maddie, I'm so sorry.
I would say
writing
that's
for
Trump.
ya.
The hurtfulness and
I'm
cruelty
so sorry.
continues. You think that? Oh,
That's Trump.
oh.
That was terrible of you, Happy. How could you?
Trump
He's
has
very hurt.
come to,
Look at
you
him trying
know,
to cover it up.
raise hell.
Mm.
He's trying to cover up his brutality. His
I-
inhumanity to Yetis.
I didn't write the poem.
You're the one that brought it in and brought it up, so I'd say that means you're in agreement now, aren't you?
Well, it is
Mhm.
a poem that.
Maddie, did I tell you what happened today to me?
What?
And it's all because of you.
No.
I'm
You
back in
had-
Facebook jail again
Why?
for sharing your show.
Really?
For sharing this wonderful FM broadcast on a real radio
F?
station. I am yet again in Facebook jail until Monday for sharing out the show.
So
Why?
what does that mean? Because there's different levels of Facebook jail. You
I'm
just
not
can't
allowed
share anything
to
out.
post into groups that I don't own or
Okay.
manage
Yeah.
again.
Well.
And the last time it happened right after sharing your show too. You keep getting me put in jail.
Who did you share it to? I just share it
Everywhere.
amongst my
well,
friends.
normal places that groups that I'm in that are for podcasting and politics. You know, things that actually
Oh, they
aspire to things that Matt talks about
consider-
politics and things of that nature. But I'm getting nailed as being like a spammer or something.
Spammer, they consider that
It's
spamming.
it's at least the second time in the last couple of months it's happened to me.
I only
All
share
over
with my
Maddie's
friends.
Show. I share his show. I get banned. I can't share it. I can't. Well, I can still share it in my wonderful women's group. It's about 16K or so. I don't
Well,
know.
I had a weird Facebook jail thing happen to me, and it also happened to G Girl, and I guess it happened to some other people too, where I wasn't allowed to like anything. Like, I just couldn't like anything on Facebook for like 10 days.
Oh, I know what that is. Yeah.
What is that? Do you know why
I
that
don't
happened?
know.
Oh,
Too much. It's
oh.
because you liked too much.
But that's
what it is.
weird, 'cause
it
I-
is. It
Yeah,
is weird.
it's bizarre.
I've had that happen to me.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm liking my friends' things, and all of a sudden,
And then
oh,
it's
you got too
gone.
many friends.
Yeah.
That's too much liking for you.
All of a sudden, the like
You must
button's
hate
gone.
things. Apparently, you must hate. You must be angry or sad in alternation of like in order to stay out of jail for that particular purpose. But I am back in Facebook jail. I am a hardened criminal now.
Byron York just tweeted, has someone done a detailed analysis of why the 31 currently active states of emergency are legitimate and the newest one concerning the U.S.-Mexico border is not? Well, he's a conservative, of course. I'm sure he's very
I don't
pro-border
like
wall.
any of that kind of crap.
But yesterday we were talking about on the show about how there's 31 other that are still active. They're all still
Which
active.
I don't understand how they're still active.
I had
and
no
they don't
idea.
Expire. You would think that something like that would have a sunset.
Right. Apparently they don't. I had no idea it was so common until you brought it to my attention. Yeah.
And what we need is Congress and the Senate to bring a bill to the floor to actually create a sunset
No,
clause
no.
for executive orders.
Well, they would have to do that.
I hate executive orders, period, because I think it's an end run around our congressional democracy.
Yeah, but when they passed the bill in '77, they basically Congress ceded the powers over emergencies to the executive branch,
I
and
still
that's why
disagree
you
with executive
have.
orders of any kind. I think if you're going to put the whole country under emergency powers, which can also
Well, who
include
would-
martial law,
He's the
it ought
commander
to
in chief.
involve Congress.
Well, no, the
If
commander in
something is
chief.
that detrimental to our nation, it should involve our congressional body that that represents us and is supposed to be the check and balance to the presidency, not a dictatorship where a president can simply do what he pleases, whenever he pleases, without little to any problem by simply making it an executive order.
Well, that's not the way it's done anymore.
That is the way it's been done for centuries by
No,
multiple
not
presidents,
since
both Democrat
1941.
and Republican.
Well,
no,
that's
not since the first Republican president was a dictator, but he did put himself up for election.
And the
in
first Democratic
1864.
one was a slave owner, so let's not go there.
That's moot.
Oh, that's moot.
It is
Never
moot.
mind the slave trading in human
If-
beings. That
if-
doesn't
if-
matter.
if George Washington-
That doesn't matter. Oi.
we got to wrap up because it's
No, but the point is
Oh,
you know,
Maddie, I toss this back to you.
well,
an
we
executive
do have to-
during a war, power goes and goes to the executive branch.
He's gonna make me nauseated.
Oh my
but
goodness!
no, that's the way it is. That's history.
Yeah.
And you can't say that. You know, I agree with
Ban
you.
all executive orders.
All right. Well, we do have to go
Anarchy.
because it's Friday. Rob's going to be
It's
coming
ridiculous. I agree with
in with
you.
Granite State of Mind, which is live next year on WMNH. So
Next year?
no, next
You
next
said next year.
no next here
You said next year.
Here.
No, we didn't.
here on
Here.
WMNH
I'm deaf
95.3
too,
FM.
but shh.
If you missed any part of today's show, it'll be up in just a little bit at WMNHradio.org. So thank you, Jenny. Thank you, John
Thank you,
Hopwood.
Thank you, Matty,
And thank you
for your dramatic reading.
thank you, William Butler
You know
Yates.
how much I love when you talk dirty to me on air.
Oh.
I hope that you make it into its own slug.
Yes,
slug?
Slug.
I'll make it
You
into
want
a slug.
slug?
Slug.
I think we could think of something better.
Well, I got a $2 bottle of vodka at home.
All
I'm
right.
sorry.
All right, so we do have to wrap up, and so we'll talk at y'all next. Oh, and thank you to Dave Ridley for calling in earlier. It was nice to hear from Dave. We're going to leave with another great hit that from Damn Yankees that was co-written by Glenn R.J. Willett, which a lot of people didn't know. It's the one thing that's maybe mildly political, so I figure, and I genuinely like the song too, so I figure it's a good way to end the show with this, even though I don't like Ted Nugent that much, but I do like
Cat Sketch Shriver.
But I do like
What'd
I do
call it?
like this song. This is "Don't Tread on Me" from Damn Yankees from the album
Perfect.
"Don't
Coming
Tread."
From a New Hampshire, New England station.
Yes, there you go.
Bye bye, Maddie.
We'll talk at y'all a little bit later. Bye, everybody.